Hi. I told you this would become a series. And let's hope this doesn't become like those 2-episode podcasts you see that haven't been touched in like 3 years and just make you a little depressed for reasons you can't quite explain. Oh my god, it's gonna end up like those. Today, I'll be taking a look at the original novelization for A New Hope, which makes up the first part of this gargantuan monstrosity you see before you. I mean, it's a really nice edition, but oh my god, it's so big. I really liked reading this book. I think that it's pretty well written, and I really enjoyed the reading experience, and I think it really enhances the viewing experience of the movie by adding more detail and more backstory to various things. And that's most of what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, this means that there isn't a whole lot to critique about it. Oh, Josh, why don't you just read a different book then? Because, shut up, I read this book and I want to do something with that. So really what this retrospective is going to be is me picking random details out of this book that I find weird or interesting and just nitpicking them. I realize I forgot to mention this in the video, but I thought I should mention another kind of odd detail about this book, and it pertains to just its release. It was actually released like 6 months before the actual movie, which is just kind of further contributes to the oddball legacy that it's left. Okay, so another quick addendum. I could have sworn there was a quote about moisture farming in here and how that leads to other crops being grown, but I can't seem to find it and I don't really have time to refilm, so probably in the next shot after this next quote, I'm gonna pretend like I read that. So, cool. The mathematics of space drive were simple enough, even to Luke. Anti-grav could operate only when there was sufficient gravity well to push against, like that of a planet, whereas super-light travel could only take place when a ship was clear of that same gravity. Hence the necessity for the dual drive system on any extra system craft. So this stuff is pretty cool, pretty weird to me. It really fleshes out the universe, I think. Owen and Baru and Luke, I guess, being moisture farmers is just kind of a throwaway detail in the movie. Like, oh, they're moisture farmers. That's how they farm on a desert planet, because George Lucas wanted them to be farmers, I guess. But here it's a real thing. The process is described fully, and it all makes sense. I always thought it was just that they collected moisture, I guess. But no, it's actually farming. It's not the moisture farming, I guess. The attraction of moisture is just part of it, which is interesting and wouldn't necessarily be implied by the name alone. The space travel stuff is really, really cool, I think. I never would have thought about like the anti-gravity stuff that they describe. It's really interesting, and you can tell that the author, thought this through. It's pretty rad. So now we're on to weird Tatooine stuff. Luke's family is described as though they're like poor, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it sounds kind of weird when you first hear it, but once you think about it for a little bit, I guess it really kind of makes sense, especially considering Owen says,
You mean the next semester before the harvest?
Sure, there's more than enough droids.
Harvest is when I need you the most.
and even though in the movie it's kind of brushed off like, oh, he doesn't really need Luke on the farm, it kind of makes sense. If they're pretty tight on money, that Luke would be crucial to the farm's operation. Obi-Wan is described kind of weirdly in this too. The monster looked very much like an old man. He was clad in a shabby cloak and loose robes hung with a few small straps, packs, and unrecognizable instruments. It was impossible to tell where the odd arrival's overlapping attire ended and his skin began. That aged visage blended into the sand-stroked cloth, and his beard appeared but an extension of the loose threads covering his upper chest. I mean, he sounds homeless, right? Okay, I'm not trying to be insensitive or anything. I'm just saying that, I live in a city with a big homeless population, and this is how a lot of them would be described. On top of this, he lives in a cave, and apparently he occasionally comes into town to sell various things, I guess, but is usually run off by Luke's uncle. No, not usually, almost immediately. And, this is how a lot of people react to the homeless. At least, in my experience. Yeah, by relationships, I only mean relationships with Luke. Sorry, there's just not a whole lot of others described here. I like Luke's past on Tatooine, that's where these two relationships I'm about to mention come from. I was just talking about Obi-Wan, and I kind of like how Luke and Obi-Wan have more of a past here. I was describing how Obi-Wan occasionally comes into town, but is run off by Luke's uncle. I kind of like that Luke knows him as Ben Kenobi, that guy who, just goes into town and sells his stuff. I like that he's probably met him before at least a couple times and has actually had human contact instead of just, meeting him for the first time in the movie. I mean, of course, this is their first real meeting, but I like that they kind of knew each other beforehand. I also really like Luke's relationship with Biggs in the book. He has one scene in the movie, and that's only in the special edition. But I like how in the book they're able to take their time. They're able to show more of a relationship. They're able to show more scenes of them interacting on Tatooine, and that's because those scenes were actually originally in the movie. They were cut because the movie flowed better without them. But I like how they're included here because a book has, more time to get to know the characters and to introduce everybody. These scenes are in most other adaptations of A New Hope, too, because, as said before, they're deleted scenes from the movie. Like, they're in the radio drama, and they're in the comic, too. So, because these extra scenes, my gosh, Biggs' death hits really hard. Like, it hits you. And this is because of this one little running thing throughout the book.
All right, I told you I'd make it here someday, Biggs. You did. His friend was moving toward a cluster of waiting fighters, adjusting his flight suit. It's going to be like old times, Luke. We're a couple of shooting stars that can't be stopped. Luke laughed. They used to reassure themselves with that cry when they piloted starships of sandhills and dead logs beyond the flaking, pitted buildings of Anchorhead, years and years ago. Wedge heard the explosion over his speakers and hunted frantically behind him for the trailing enemy ships. "We lost Biggs!" he yelled toward his own pickup. Luke didn't reply immediately. His eyes were watering, and he angrily wiped them clear. They were blurring his view of the targeting readout. "We're a couple of shooting stars, Biggs," he whispered huskily, "and we'll never be stopped."
Ducks destroy Star Wars lore. This is so freaking stupid. Okay, so in the book, Obi-Wan mentions this.
"I understand you're quite a pilot yourself. Piloting and navigation are hereditary, but a number of the things that combine to make a good small ship pilot are. Those you may have inherited. Still, even a duck has to be taught to swim." "What's a duck?" Luke asked curiously.
And I mean, I'm fine with that. In this, Obi-Wan is a magical space wizard. It's fine if he knows about ducks. And it doesn't make any sense for Luke to know about ducks, because why would there be ducks in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away? I mean, that makes about as much sense as there being humans exactly like those on Earth. Disregard. And, this makes sense. I'm willing to accept that maybe in the past Obi-Wan somehow learned of Earth ducks. But then later in the book...
A mechanical voice continued to recite the shrinking distance to the target, but it wasn't shrinking fast enough. "We're sitting ducks down here," he observed nervously.
I cannot stress enough how stupid this is. I know it seems like I'm nitpicking, and I am, but this is really, really dumb. I don't like this. And then you might say, oh, Josh, he's just using ducks figuratively in the second example. You know, he's not talking about literal ducks. That would just be insane, you know. Yeah, but watch this clip from episode 3.
You're gonna need me on this one, Master.
Oh, I agree. However, it may turn out just to be a wild panther chase.
You notice how Obi-Wan, instead of saying wild goose chase, says wild bantha chase. Because bantha is a Star Wars animal, and goose is an Earth animal. Oh my god, this is so dumb. And then, get this. In The Phantom Menace, Captain Panaka says this.
We're losing droids, fast.
If we can't get the shield generator fixed, we'll be sitting ducks.
Yay, it's time for another rambly conclusion. It's not going to be as bad this time, guys. I swear. Although, I did not write much in the script about this conclusion, so I'm probably going to have to improvise a lot of this. Hooray! So like I said before, I really did enjoy the book. You know, I thought it was a very interesting read. I definitely think it enriches the viewing experience. And unlike with the comic I read last time, I really do recommend that you read it if you can find it somewhere inexpensively. It's available, you know, digitally in a lot of different formats on like Google Play Books. At least it's probably on iTunes or wherever you buy books, on Apple too. You know, I really did like reading this book. I thought, you know, it was very interesting, and I can't wait to read the novelization for Empire, which I'm hoping to have a retrospective on out in the next couple weeks. But I've got to read it first. Thanks for watching. Yeah. Bye, guys.